So I'm 39 years old, and I just learned to drive. Just got my driver's license recently, and frankly, I know almost nothing about cars. So I can't really tell a bumper from a fender, to be completely honest with you, but I am still going to talk about cars to you for the next 20 minutes. Now, since I come from Copenhagen, it is not entirely unusual to be 39 when you get your driver's license. So it is true that we do a lot when it comes to making the city a great place to go around on two wheels. And it's frankly quite nice to experience that Copenhagen is kind of living up to the expectations of being a city with a very strong bike culture after some years of relative standstill when it came to bike culture. So when I'm not in Copenhagen, I'm in Switzerland working for Magnolia. And I have a lot of time down there because my family is back in Copenhagen. So I have a lot of time to learn new things. And one day, I stumbled across something that really hit me. I came across a documentary about what is known as concept cars. And I had completely exhausted the internet a couple of weeks later about everything there was to know about concept cars. And so that was a curious moment for me because I was not into cars. I thought I actually didn't like cars. And there I was, I suddenly couldn't stop watching everything there was to know about these weird concept cars. So what I was seeing was no ordinary car though. This is what is considered to be the first concept car, called the Buick Y-Job from General Motors. And for those who don't know what a concept car really is, they're experimental prototypes used to showcase new designs or new technologies. And the Y-Job was astonishingly different from anything else you had seen back in the late 1930s when it came to cars. So I'd like to explore here what we can learn, what was started back in those late 1930s, and kind of dig into how to take that concept forward. Now you may ask, aren't these just fancier prototypes than what we typically build? But as we'll explore today, I think there's something very important and very different between normal prototyping and the concept of concept cars. To me, there is something pivotal inside the concept of concept cars, which is just really different from the prototyping that I typically engage in on a daily basis, and quite frankly love, and which I see all over the place. But back when I started researching concept cars, I hadn't really come to that realization yet. I was just intrigued by them, and because I'm generally not that interested in cars, as I said, it was kind of easy for me to look behind those shiny objects. When you talk to car designers about concept cars, they tend to be talking a lot about the cars themselves. So I wanted to know everything there was to know about the concept. I wanted to know how the automobile industry is really using the concept of concept cars, not just to produce wonderfully imaginative prototypes, but the whole story around them. So I went beyond my normal daily life in software development and design, and I started going out to meet a lot of car designers, or designers of these concept cars. And I talked to a broad range of people in the industry and to figure out what it was really all about. And it turns out there is a large system, industry-wide system, around the practice of designing and constructing and showcasing these concept cars. And what really intrigued me was that there's an important difference between how concept cars work and how normal prototyping works. So concept cars is an instrument in the automobile industry, used to explore ideas, trends and technologies and designs through these very, very high fidelity prototypes. And they range from models that are very close to what will go into production at a later stage and to concepts that are far more out there. And you can, when you look into what kind of weird concept cars were built, there are some fantastic examples. This is a nuclear-powered concept car. And there are so many examples of these really even out there designs. And you also see some very time-typical models. So here, we're looping back to the late 1930s concept car. Nowadays, the concept of concept cars has definitely evolved, but it relies on some core aspects. So when you look at this picture here of a car show, any car lover will immediately start to go spot the cars. But to someone like me, it's much more interesting to figure out what is happening between those conceptual vehicles. So the interesting part of the image is not really the cars themselves, it is the people and the conversations between them around those cars. So concept cars are not really sellable products, but they're dreams waiting for customers to kind of pour their emotions into. So here you can see how you can have a conversation with your target audience in front of a very real thing, but that audience is completely clear that this kind of car will never be sold. So look at how they react to the prototype. It's quite interesting. And I mean, what is it really that is so interesting about it? Because you can't buy it. There are also other great examples, like this exoskeleton car here, which is a great example of completely limitless experimentation, where you can go completely beyond the safety barriers or the legal concerns that you would normally struggle with when developing a new car. And here's a great example of how to go completely beyond your normal category. So this is a vehicle living inside another vehicle. So one is small and flexible and for quick transport in dense traffic, and the other one, you can take the small one into the large one, and then you can drive on the highway at faster speeds. And I think it shows a great deal about how the company thinks about mobility. But there's something that really goes beyond the vehicles themselves and the design of the concept cars. Because this is a picture from a BMW presentation recently, an internal presentation. It's all about pride and enthusiasm for the products. So you can test new ideas, new technology, new designs in this high-fidelity format. So why do so many car manufacturers agree that it's such a great idea to follow the same industry-wide concept of building these concept cars? And I think concept cars are really designed to release a highly emotional impact from the person looking at it. They're meant to evoke dreams. They're not meant to be sold. So what is particularly interesting, though, is how elements of the concept cars drip down to the production line models. And that's something we'll explore more. And on top of all this, there's also no doubt that concept cars is a fantastic hiring tool. In order to hire and find and retain the best people, working on dream projects like this is just really great. So what is the real difference here between what I call normal prototyping and concept cars? We'll explore that. And we'll go on talking about all the sides to that. So isn't this just normal prototypes? Here you have a long range of prototypes leading to the final product. And let's try to compare those two concepts. First, let's look at normal prototyping. So if you imagine that the top dark triangle here, the black one, is the final sellable product that you brought to the market. And the other ones, the two ones below, are the candidates. And then at the bottom, you have the three or multiple rapid prototypes that you build to kind of move fast toward a sellable product. So you have the product on top, made up of candidates that are, again, made up of rapid prototypes. In other words, there's a lot of value at the top if you get it right, and there's a whole lot of trash below that. All kinds of prototypes that can be fantastic, that you just throw out. So in order to be innovative, many companies choose this model where they put an internal disruption team to work. But what is important here is that they kind of use the same methodology for how to create a new product. Concept cars, however, are quite different. Here you have multiple trends and ideas and technology that go into the white one, which is a concept car, which then spreads out to multiple products. So one concept becomes multiple products. And in other words, there's a lot of value at the top and a bit less trash at the bottom. So you see a concept car will atomize into many products instead of just being one product. So if we compare them side to side here, rapid prototyping is about failing fast, it's about getting to market fast, it's about getting to one product at a time, whereas concept cars succeed slowly. They have a slow market entry, and you see multiple products coming out of concepts. Now this is car designer Kalle Norbo, and he's showing me how the front grille of a concept car made it from concept to a whole line of products. Now concept cars may be very expensive to produce, but the question really is, what I started wondering about was, when there's more value to gain from letting your organization experiment in a new way than the massive focus on the minimum viable product and the push toward getting products onto the market as fast as possible. So one of the most important aspects about buying a car is the story that you like to communicate about yourself, just like Oliver also mentioned before me. This is called the Dodge Tomahawk, and it had a hypothetical top speed between 480 and 680 kilometers per hour. And it was, according to Dodge, really a rolling sculpture. It's not even really a motorcycle because there are four wheels that are not attached, so they're working independently. And why did Dodge create such a special and insanely powerful looking vehicle that will never hit the streets? So I'd like to challenge you to think about what it would mean to your organization if you tried pulling product teams together and gave them this brief that it must not be possible to sell what they produce. I think in the digital space, we're sometimes too focused on the MVP, on failing fast, on producing prototypes that are all meant to lead to that one killer sellable product as fast as possible. We kind of focus on getting stuff to the market as fast as possible, and that's frankly natural for an industry that's only about to mature. We've been so kind of enthusiastic about reinventing everything about, we could kind of write the books in the digital space. And that's been fantastic. But it is time to start looking at what other industries already invented long ago that we can use in the digital space. So although concept cars are pretty expensive to build, there's an economic aspect to them as well, because traces from these conceptual vehicles kind of weave their way into not one but multiple production line units. And what is interesting here is that the design you get, regardless of whether you have the money for the luxury model or the cheap one, will all stem from that conceptual design. So how can we use this elsewhere? I started asking myself that question. How could we work outside, how could this work outside of the auto industry? What if we started creating digital products with this kind of mindset and kind of for a moment just left the goal of bringing something to market as fast as possible? Now, software has a long, catastrophic history of drawn-out development processes. And I think that's kind of put a curse on the idea that that can be value in longer development processes. So what if we kind of reimagine the travel experience like this, where, like some do today, where you can drive and fly in the same vehicle? Or what if I use this kind of design thinking when I explore how to develop software? That's not something I can do. It's not something any one of us can do if you are too focused on getting to the sellable product. Now, imagine this is your comfort zone. It's your organizational comfort zone. It's what your organization kind of likes and knows how to navigate in. Concept prototypes is a much more kind of risk-free way of exploring how to move beyond your category, and there's an established system for how to do that. So at Magnolia, we produce software used by the likes of Airbus and New York Times and Virgin America. And that is a fairly established category, really, of digital experience management or content management. But what if we wanted to go completely beyond our own category? How do you do that in a more risk-free way? Because quite frankly, no one on your board will sign off on, yeah, let's try something completely different in a completely different category. That's a huge risk. There's a kind of a way to get around that with the concept of concept cars. So I started looking for inspiration from completely different places. And I used to dance classical ballet at the Royal Danish Ballet many years ago. And there's something to learn from other industries here, or from this industry of the arts. And I started asking, what can technology really learn from the art? Or to go even further, what can the enterprise B2B world learn from the artistic processes that govern the creation of art? And I think art knows something very special about quality, about how to reach quality by embracing the explorative. It shouldn't be a playground for your organization to try to go outside of your normal category. You can kind of bridge or marry very structured processes with open-ended exploration. So I've begun writing about concept software together with a few friends, and if you're interested in kind of exploring how the concept of concept cars would transfer to software development, you're extremely welcome to come and chat with me about that. So, finishing up, the car designer Kalle Norbo, he told me to kind of just stop sometimes. That was his way of looking at concept cars. You have to take a deep breath because speed just isn't everything. And with this wonderfully beautiful car, thanks a lot.